Township Shade Tree Commission meeting of January 2011, even though it's February 1. Last week's meeting had to be postponed due to the weather. We have 4 plans on the agenda this evening for review. The first one being 15 Ridgewood Road. Is the representation here tonight for that plan? Okay. We will then move to the second one on the agenda, 600 Maplewood and 752 Brook Road.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. My name's Kaz Holloway. I'm representing the owners, Mr. and Mrs. Thomas and Jill Nerney. And this evening we have Rita Kurlonis, who is the caretaker on the property, but she has extensive experience in landscaping. She was in the landscaping business for many years. And John Hosbach of Rockwell Associates, the arborist who presented the report for tonight's meeting. Okay. I also would like to share with you an aerial photograph, which I think will be very helpful with the plans that we submitted with the application.
And Cass, can you put one of them on the table so that that
Sure.
can be presented on the screen as well?
Right here.
Okay, and let them narrow in on it. Okay. Good.
With the application, we submitted the Alta survey and the existing conditions plan, both prepared by Chester Valley engineers. We do not have anyone here this evening from Chester Valley. But I believe the aerial photograph, which is in the same scale as the plans that I submitted, I think will be very helpful to show the density of the forest on the 36 acres of the site. Approximately 21 acres of the 36 acres are wooded, and the balance is unwooded. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Rita to just give a brief description of what the intent is, and then allow John to answer any questions regarding the report. Do you have any further questions for me?
Okay, so the plans that were submitted are of this dimension?
Yes.
Okay.
But it shows the topo, and the aerial that I just presented also has the topo 10-foot contours.
Okay.
Okay. Rita?
Thanks.
Thank you very much.
Good evening. My name is Rita Kurlonis. I work for Tom and Jill Nerney. I am the caretaker of the property at 752 Brook Road. In my time spent on the property, going through the property, I've realized how much existing dead debris has already been fallen down due to the lack of maintenance on the property and proper forestation practices. As I proceeded with my inquiry, I also realized there was numerous dead standing trees on the property, which you are all familiar with. In addition to that, I identified numerous distressed, diseased, and vine-engulfed trees on the property. Also, due to the close proximity of many of the larger trees up towards the Maplewood Hill. They're so close together that they're shading out the environment, and there's no regeneration of our indigenous trees there. There's no cherries growing. There's no new tulip poplars growing. There's no black walnuts growing. It is so dense and shaded out that the only trees that are regenerating at this time are the beech trees. And what we're trying to do is to open up the property for the regeneration of the woodland area in order to maintain a sustainable, healthy forest.
Okay. What's your deer population on this property?
Sometimes I see 10 or 12. Sometimes I see none. Sometimes I see 2 or 3.
Mm-hmm.
But the most I have seen is 10, 12 at one time.
Okay. I'm just wondering if part of your regeneration problem might be deer feeding on the seedlings. So I just put that on the table for what it's worth. I understand there's approximately 48 healthy trees that are being removed.
I would refer to John for the exact calculations on that.
Okay. And 37 dead trees have already been removed, correct?
Only half of the dead trees have been removed at this point.
Okay, and that's due to weather and whatnot, is that okay?
Correct.
Because we approved the fact that you could go forward with the removal of the dead. So the remaining is about 115 so-so trees?
Yes.
Okay.
As you're aware, the township asked that we have a report done, and John is the one who has supplied the report to all of you about the conditions of the trees on the property.
Okay.
One thing Rita did do, and she's a little modest, she actually went out and counted every tree on
Yes,
the
I did.
property. There's 2,320 trees. I think John estimated 2,500, but Rita actually physically counted.
Okay.
So
It's a task.
if you look at the 54 trees that are in poor condition that we are asking to remove, that represents 2.3% of the total. And if you look at the fair to good condition trees that are being asked to be removed, that represents 2.07 of the total number of trees on the site. We also have photographs that really, I think, will be very helpful. Would you like me to put them on the overhead?
Before you do that, you've displayed the topographic map here. Is there some way that you can indicate the majority of the trees that you're suggesting?
Well, the trees are really spread around the entire
Throughout?
property.
Okay.
No one area has been more specifically targeted than any other. It is very well spread out through the property.
Okay.
The Maplewood entrance is right here. It's very hard to see because of the density of the trees, but the road comes through here, turns, circles. This is the, you can see the house location there, which has been removed. But that area was open. There were a few trees that were around the house that we protected during the earth moving that went on to remove the house. And then you can see the lower area down here is it's really open meadow and field. Yes. But there is not a concentration of either poor condition trees or healthy trees that are in any one location. We do have a picture, and it might help. Could I come up first before?
Sure, yeah, because they're not going to show up on the...
These pictures just show I'm sorry. These four pictures are just representative of how dense the forest is from different shots. Okay, I think it's very helpful.
Okay.
And I'm going to leave the heritage for last. Okay. Now, these are some of the fair or good condition trees that we're asking to be removed. In this particular picture, this tree that's leaning, this tree we're asking to be removed, that's leaning. That tree, which is considered.
And that tree in the picture, which is curving quite a bit, is that listed as a poor condition?
No, it's actually labeled as a good condition.
That's labeled as a good condition, okay. Because the tree is healthy, it just is in a very bad form, okay.
You know, when I went about this and identifying...
Do you want to talk into the mic? Yeah.
When I went about this...
We can't hear, not in the mic, yeah.
When I started identifying the trees, I'm sorry, I did this with careful consideration.
Talk into the mic, please, yeah.
I did this with careful consideration for the environment and for the respect of the trees on the property. I didn't walk around and say, well, there's a tree that should come down. I took in the factors that were surrounding those trees. If there was a tree, you know, a heritage tree, and then a foot gap, and then another 24 or 28-inch tree, we chose to remove the smaller tree to protect the heritage tree. This was not done without thought, just so you know.
This is one of the other, it's actually John, is that the one with the large fruit? Fair. This is fair condition. But one of the 48 fair condition that are being asked to be removed. This is the long root stem. And then this was fair condition that had split. So that could be pruned, but it's being asked to be removed. And then we can go into the heritage. But this is pretty representative of the type of trees that are being asked to be removed on the site, of the 2% fair to good condition. This is poor condition heritage. Poor condition heritage. This is poor condition heritage. It's this tree. This is actually, this stem is dead. This leader, co-dominant.
Right.
Yeah. Heritage. Now these are poor condition, but they're live, but they're in a very poor condition. This is actually poor condition, and it's leaning, and it's right by the carriage house. It's actually, I'm sorry we don't have a picture of it, of how much it's leaning, but it's
okay.
Hollow inside. This is another poor condition heritage. So I believe there's 14 heritage trees. So of those trees, I just showed 6 pictures of very poor condition.
So, John, could you go to the microphone, please? Yeah. So you rated the tree, could you just describe, or what standards go towards rating something as a poor condition?
I follow what's called the P. Can you hear me all right? It's actually a company called Trace, and they're out of British Columbia. And we follow the hazard tree appraisal system, which is based on 12 points. And we base it down and depreciates throughout the entire tree.
And a poor tree, a tree rated poor
Correct.
would
have more than 2 defects.
Okay. And might be unsafe, is probably going to die, or it's in poor health anyway, or is a hazard?
More of a hazard, unsafe.
Okay. I think my main interest will be then about the 48 good trees. So if you,
Yeah,
are
John,
there questions about the poor ones before, or others?
Yeah, of the 48 good trees, what's your sense of those? What's your opinion of those trees coming down?
I mean, they're all in good health. There's no structural defects at this time of inspection. They're good standing trees, and as you know, as I inspected them, there was no standing defects.
Okay. And if that were the case, then why are they coming down?
Rita will explain a little bit about that. However, she is trying to open up the property to allow more light, to establish a reforestation program.
regeneration.
Correct. And also to open up some areas for where they're going to, be able to maintain the other trees and plant throughout the, the existing forest.
John, what's the percentage of Norway maples in the woodland offhand, rough guesstimate?
From my report, there's only a handful. However, there is approximately 200 Norway maples in and among the natural area, especially down by the carriage house.
So if we wanted to open up a woodland,
Correct.
would you consider a good selection of a tree to be removed would be a Norway maple?
Absolutely. It's on the list of invasive species.
So how many Norway maples do we have on that list of 45 that are good trees that are coming down?
I'd have to count.
Howard, can you look real quick? I didn't see any.
No, I don't think there's many on that catalog.
So if we want to open up a woodland and get rid of invasive species,
Sure.
but we're not keying out the #1 invasive species in our woodland, there's
Because
not-
most of the population is not concentrated with Norway maples in the areas we looked at. There's only a certain section, correct, along Brook Road and right below the carriage house.
Okay. Cass, where's the house going, the new house?
The site hasn't been selected yet, but the architect is Peter Archer, and the landscape architect has been selected, Henry Dornbrock, from Morristown, New Jersey. And he has already walked the site. The architect has walked the site 2 times. I believe the area of focus is the general location where the existing house, where the main house once stood. So our intent would be, once the site has been selected by Mr. and Mrs. Nerney and the architect, we would then have Chester Valley come in and do a site plan and do a tree survey of that immediate area to come back. Right now, the trees that are being asked to be removed tonight are not in the general vicinity of where the house was located. I mean, there are a few, but there are no.
There's probably around 20 in that area,
Okay.
the old footprint there.
Of combination dead.
Combination dead and of a large population of the heritage trees, the large tulip poplars that are right.
Okay, okay. Yeah. There are actually 4 large tulip poplars that were right behind the house, which probably would have been, had the house remained, would have been removed to allow sunlight to the house. They were very tall, and but once the scope of the job want beyond the 6 that are allowed, even though it's 36 acres. They're included in this, so.
Okay.
There is one tree there, I'm sorry, there's one picture there that shows a heritage tree with a large tree right next to it, and it's the tree right next to it that is kind of representative of what Rita was talking about, the intent to try to help the better tree
Okay.
open up. One of those pictures shows that. And I think I did give you pictures of 3 or 4 fair condition trees that were leaning. So of those 48, you probably have half of those that are, even though they're not technically poor condition, they're growing at an angle within all the other trees. So that was the intent.
Okay. John, of the what you assessed, the tulip poplar population on the property in the heritage tree realm, any idea?
I'm not sure what you're asking.
I think they're suggesting that several of the trees that are going to come down in the area of the existing mansion, or
Correct.
what was the existing mansion, those are tulip poplars.
That is correct, yep.
And what's the tulip poplar population like in the rest of the property? Is
I'd
it
say it's probably in the 20% range,
okay.
with beech being the dominant species.
Okay. Okay. Any other thoughts?
Obviously, the property has not been cared for with trees for a long time, and you're doing a lot of good work in taking care of the trees. The one concern I have is where you're just cutting down to open up more light, because in a forested situation, trees that have grown together, actually the 2 trees right next to each other are not hurting each other. They're actually taking one down can cause the large tree next to it to be more susceptible to falling, to other issues. And growth of beech in our native woodland, the beeches are the last species to come in, and they have evolved to come in shade. So that description didn't necessarily sound different than what a natural forest here should be looking like. And the deer population in that area is high. We have land that's outside deer fence that we have no regeneration, and it's not because there's too much shade. It's because of deer.
Well, I mean,
So my concern is the trees that are in good condition that are just being cut down to open up more light. Norway maples, you could cut every Norway maple on the property, and that would be fine with me. That would be helpful.
but we are going to follow the shelterwood method, if you're familiar with that, where you're actually
No.
leaving some of the adult shade trees in order to protect the young saplings as they start to emerge and regenerate themselves. So it's not going to be a total thinning. As I directed Rita, it should be done over a 5-year span.
But still, where there's I think Rita mentioned, let's say a 20 or 24-inch caliper tree next to a heritage tree and cutting down the 24-inch. I'm not, in many cases where I've seen that, the 24-inch caliper tree is not damaging the other tree, the larger tree, in my experience. Now, either one of you could, there are cases where it can, but other cases where they grow quite happily
I concur
together.
with that. I mean, obviously, that is Rita's opinion and objective. I can concur on both parts, actually.
In addition to that, I'm not just looking at 2 trees side by side. I'm also looking at a heritage that's 10 or 12 feet to the right of that, or 10 or 12 feet behind it. So I'm not singling out just these 2 trees that are within close proximity. I'm also trying to protect them on their sides as well by keeping those other trees in close proximity to it. So
And
that
so
we're
it's-
having,
yeah,
we're having
it's where those-
heritage trees, every 10, 15 feet or so.
Right, and that's where I'm having trouble, where if there is a healthy tree that's just being cut down for the reasons you've listed, I'm not convinced on that. With the poor health and fair health trees and trees that are a possible danger because of their misshapen form, I can be convinced of that. But where it's just where there's a healthy tree that's going to be cut down, that is not an invasive species that's growing near another tree, I'm not convinced that that's going to be good for anything. So those are the only ones that I have trouble with approving. Yep.
Gentlemen, but that wasn't what's reported, not my report.
Right.
I didn't report that. To save heritage tree, I didn't report to cut down a tree to save a heritage tree. I reported to hook up light and to regenerate the forest. That was Rita's opinion to cut down trees, cut another tree.
Just curious, just from observation standpoint, Cass, you know what our ordinance is, right? So I work in a township every day. I work by the site. When we see log skidder, whole tree chipper showing up at a site and we don't know anything about it, we get a little excited, We get a little excited about what's going on, what's happening over here, and why we got to pull you out of the woods to find out, what the whole scope of the project is. It seemed like we didn't know anything about what was going on until everything was already going on over here.
I believe I had a meeting with Mr. Malloy and Mr. Bauman while we were in the process of doing the house demolition, and said that there were plans to take out the dead wood first. If you look at some of the pictures, you'll see a lot of downed trees, and was told that that was acceptable and that could be done to clean up the site, and that did not require any going with the forward to the Shade Tree Commission. So I believe, and then when we asked about it, we were told to do the arborist report in lieu of doing a tree survey of the 36 acres. And all those conversations with Radnor was done long before any equipment showed up at the site. I think what happened was once the report came in and it was sent to, I believe Mr. Holden received the first copy of the report, we were told, and it was relayed to Rita, that it was going to be okay to take down the dead trees, to take all the trees that had fallen and to take the 37 dead trees down, and that permit was issued. And I believe that's when the equipment showed up. I do believe that once that equipment showed up, I believe there were some phone calls that were generated because of that equipment. But we did notify the township before anything was done. I just think it was a juxtaposition of the timing.
I mean,
John, when you visited the site, was any equipment already on site?
There was.
Okay.
That was, the permit for the dead trees was already permitted, correct?
Yeah, the dead tree permit had already been issued.
That's what I was told.
Well, the permit didn't get issued until after I talked with you. And I saw the equipment over there before that.
Yeah. Okay.
Well, the equipment, there was general cleaning up. There was not a hydroax, but I guess a brush hog doing the multiflora rose, the honeysuckle, and removing the dead trees. Now, there was equipment there. If the tree, if Berg Construction brought in any other equipment, it was only in anticipation of the dead tree, of taking up all the dead trees. And I think they have some of them stacked right now, and both ones that were laying on the ground, and I think they've taken down 20 of the 37 dead trees that were permitted for. So I don't think there was any intent. I think once the equipment hit the site, I think it did get a lot of people's attention, but we had been talking to the township long before any equipment entered the site. And I think it took a couple weeks from the time it was recommended to me that by Dan Malloy that there would be an arborist. There was going to it was recommended that an arborist come and walk the site. I think
Right.
about 2 weeks had passed till John actually came to the site.
Okay.
But that all being said, nothing's been, they've only taken 20 of the 37 trees down. Nothing else has been taken down that is being asked to be
And all of those
considered.
are trees that are already dead.
Pardon me?
All of those 20 are trees that are already dead?
Yes, they were dead, yeah. And I think John would concur with that,
Okay.
yeah. So,
Well, I have no problem with taking down the 54 poor condition trees, and I don't have any problem with removing any invasive exotic species of any size. But then I'd like a more careful review of the good condition trees, the good and fair condition trees. So that's my feeling.
I'm with you on that, Bill.
I'm sorry?
I'm with you on that.
how would
point.
you suggest that we do that? What would you like to see? What I'm asking is, how would you like us to identify maybe, for example, the picture that I showed with the heritage tree with the 24-inch tree next to it? How would you like that?
The easiest thing for me is a plan showing the trees and saying which ones are to come down, and then discussing each one as to why it's coming down. That's one way of doing it. That's the way it's usually done here.
The justification that I'm hearing is that in order to protect a large tree, perhaps a smaller tree is coming down, and we're trying to provide more light for regeneration, which may not have anything to do with the shade factor. John, I don't know whether you can shed any more light on the trees that you feel, as a certified arborist, are in question of coming down?
Out of the healthy ones, the ones that are in good standing,
Yeah.
they're all in good health. I mean, the only reason that they're being proposed to be removed is to open up more light and to allow for supplemental planting down the road using native rhododendrons and mountain laurel, as discussed with the previous. No bearing on the health. They're all healthy trees.
Mm-hmm.
But just so I understand, of the 48 trees, I think the 4 or 5 pictures I showed you that are leaning, that are in fair,
Right.
they're fair condition, it's leaning, it's okay to take those down from what is that correct, what I'm understanding? So what you would like us to do is identify, of the 48, if, say, 12 are leaning or in the condition as we've identified in the photographs, they would be okay, and then we could have our engineer come out and identify the 30 trees.
I would feel better with the ones that are rated as good or fair condition, that each one be discussed.
Okay.
So what I'm proposing to the commission is that we approve the 54 poor condition trees coming down, and then any species that is considered an invasive exotic, I'm proposing any of those trees could come down. So that would include Norway maples, but John has the list, and but any tree that is growing in a curving fashion, that's one I'd like to see on the plan, saying this is in good condition or fair. Yeah.
Okay.
But anything poor condition, I'm saying I'm fine with, and also invasive exotics. And as I understand it, if it's a 5-year project, then delaying for another month the approval of these 40-some or whatever trees, I don't see why that is a hardship.
That was my recommendation, 5-year project. However, that's totally dependent on the caretaker and the owner.
Yeah.
Okay, so you would like us to have a plan of all 48 fair and good condition trees, so, but just a survey of those trees, is that correct?
Yes, and then with each one saying, and then we'd like to know why each one's coming down. So, yeah.
Okay.
As a matter of my interest, they have a lot of the sort of on the photograph here, mostly on the, I guess, the left side. I'll call it the west, but I don't know what the orientation of the north is. Most of the trees are up on the hill around where the house used to exist, and down on the right-hand side where it drops down lower, there's not very many trees. When you're taking down 100 trees or so, and putting up a total of 184 plus 184. It says on here you're going to plant 184 trees in 2 phases. It says that twice. Are we talking about a total of 184 trees going in, or twice that number?
184.
So the second line is just extraneous. Are they all going to be going in the area where it's currently wooded, or are you going to plant some down in the other areas?
There's going to be some buffer plantings, I believe, and I think Rita could answer that question better.
When John came out, Tom and Jill had talked to me about a screening going up the right-hand side of the driveway and curving in towards Maplewood. And when John came out and he mentioned the mitigation, he said that he would be okay with using those 184 for the mitigation purposes. Then, in addition, we would go into the woodland area and do some additional plantings.
But that's not what it's saying on here. Not that. That's okay. But you're basically going to keep where you currently have woodland. That's where you're going to plant all the trees basically in that area. You're going to take some down and put more back there.
Yes.
But you're not going to expand the woodlands down towards Brook Road.
No.
What purpose is the more meadow-like area?
Come again?
What purpose is the meadow-like area parallel to Brook Road? What purpose is that going to serve? Is it going to remain meadow?
The grassy areas will remain meadow.
Okay. And how are they going to be managed?
Mowed,
Okay. Okay.
The property already looks
thank you,
very nice, yeah.
thank you,
They commended on the cleanup. Looks great over
Yeah.
there.
thank you. I've worked hard.
Yeah, looks
Obviously,
great.
yep. Okay.
Okay,
Thank you.
so I think what the suggestion has been is that a plan of the 48 trees be identified and then explain why each one is coming down, and then that be presented at the next Shade Tree Commission meeting.
Okay, but you're going to let the 54 poor ones come down, and the other species and stuff can come down at this
Right.
point.
Right.
But the 48 that are those you want to see stuff.
The good
next time.
and the fair, yeah.
Very good, correct?
Right.
And any of the Norways can come down.
Yeah, anything invasive or exotic,
No matter the size of the Norway.
right,
Yes, we are approving that.
right.
And
You
if
can-
it's some other invasive exotic species, that would be all right also.
Okay. I will report back to Mr. and Mrs. Nerney, but I'm sure that they will be happy to comply
Okay,
with that so that this can be presented next meeting.
okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
John, what's your last name?
Stock HOS, PhD.
Okay, take your photos. Thank you, sir. I'm going to keep this one. Okay, 344 King of Prussia Road. Is there representation here?
I'm sorry, is this yours?
Yes.
Good evening, gentlemen. My name's John Smerga.
John?
I am the engineer that's here for Dr. Fritz Walker. As you can see from the drawings, we are proposing a subdivision, a two-lot subdivision. It's on the corner of Glen Mary and King of Prussia Road, directly across the street from St. Martin's. There's an existing house on the property.
Can you lay out your proposed subdivision?
Could I borrow one of the pages of that, put it underneath?
Which one are you looking for?
Thanks.
You didn't.
To the north side of the property is Glen Mary Road. Across the street is St. Martin's. To the east is King of Prussia Road. On the east side of the property, there's an existing house, which is shown as to be remained. It will be renovated and kept in place. So really, the only development is going to be on the lower tract, where we're proposing to subdivide that one piece of property. So anything from the property line east will remain. We don't intend on doing anything except internal renovations and external siding and what have you. So nothing will be done on that piece of property. On the lower side, obviously with the house and the driveway and the proposed garage, there's a number of trees to be taken down. I believe there's 5 in total. There's not a specimen tree on the property. They're mostly ashes and maples and one oak. And some fir trees. And then minor trees, 2, 3, 4-inch caliber trees, 5-inch caliber trees, which will be basically brush hooked away. I think there's a total of 5.
Where are they going to be? Where are they coming down?
Yes, they're crossed out with X's.
Do you have a list here?
No, I do not have a list. That's one of the things I have to add to the, I'm sure you're going to ask me to add a list of the trees. Oh, excuse me, there is a list. If you look right above the title block. There are 4 trees to be taken down, my mistake.
Okay. This is the first we've seen this, so hang with us. You're
Sure.
putting a macadam drive in for the proposed dwelling,
Yes,
and there are, it looks as though several maples that are hugging that border that are,
yeah, there'll be a space of about 8 feet between the property line, the fence line, and the edge of the driveway.
and there's also a proposed garage that looks to be within about maybe 10, 15 feet of a 30-inch maple.
Correct.
And you've got a 30-inch fir over on the existing dwelling with a new sanitary lateral running about maybe 5 to 7 feet within its root zone.
Yes, sir. Again, that sanitary lateral is schematically shown. Obviously, I can move that sanitary lateral. That's not a problem. Both the new laterals are schematically shown. They'll be field installed once the new sewer is put in.
Yeah, so looking at the plan, how far away from the fir tree could you put that lateral then?
I can basically hug the property line. Keep it about 3 or 4 feet off the property line, which will put it about 18 feet away from, I would say 15 feet away from that fir tree. It's not a very pretty fir tree anyway.
And then you're going to be in the root zone of a 10-inch oak.
Again, if it's,
What
if
we
that
wanna-
10-inch oak, it'd be probably better off to take that 10-inch oak down.
Well, that's what we're struggling with, and again, we ask for your patience as we try to come up to speed, is whether or not you're accurately representing how many trees you're really taking down. If it were only 5 trees, you could just simply go for a clearing permit and you wouldn't necessarily even be here other than the fact it's a subdivision. But it appears as though that you're really going to be impacting more than 5 trees. I mean, significantly impacting them.
This one with the X's on the left, which we've taken.
Which one, sir? Did you say?
Oh, he's taking out the ones with the X's.
Yes.
left.
According to your scale here, you're going to be within like 3 feet of 36-inch maple, 30-inch maple, as you put that driveway in. Those trees are not going to survive that. It's got a 12-inch ash that, according to scale, you're about 4 feet from it. 30-inch maple for your garage, you're right around 10 feet. That's not going to survive.
Well, obviously, the intent was to try to preserve as many trees as possible, but within construction limitations, obviously, sometimes it all doesn't stand the case.
Right.
I would rather show them as trying to be saved, and obviously, if in the course of which Lower Merion does to me all the time, if something dies within 18 months, we have to replace it. So, we can leave the trees as said, except for, I think that oak tree should come down, the one that's going to be too close to the lateral, which would make the 5th tree, and the rest of them kept as tried to save them.
You're not going to try and save them. I mean, they're going to die.
Okay?
You know.
Then you would opt to have them shown cut down now, and then replaced
Right.
according to your.
You don't have a replacement schedule?
Not right now, because I'm only showing 4 trees coming down.
Right.
So if I start to obviously decimate the site, then I will have to get a replacement schedule for you for next time.
Is there any possibility of reconfiguring the proposed dwellings such that
To drive over here.
you're not affecting so many trees?
Well, if I put the driveway on the other side of the property, obviously it's only it's only an 81-foot wide piece of property. So I either hug one property line or I hug the other property line. If I put it on the uphill side, I'll be better off with the lower trees along the property line. They would be safer because there'd be no. But all the trees on the other side would be taken down.
But it looks like there'd be many fewer trees lost that way. Am I reading that correctly?
Yeah, there would be 5 trees taken down by putting the driveway on the other side.
Or build a skinnier house.
It's only an 80. I mean, when you take the side yards out,
I mean, you're wall to
which is
wall.
35 feet, I'm only left with 56 feet, which is not a very big house.
So what are the 5 trees you're saying you'd have to take out to put in the tree?
May I?
Why don't you just show it
Okay.
on there?
Obviously, that tree, that tree, that tree, that one was already planned to come down. That was already planned to come down, and this 30-inch maple.
So it's a 20-inch maple, a 10-inch oak, 15-inch maple, and a 30-inch maple?
Correct.
Okay. And then the 15-inch ash is already, okay. So it'd be 4 additional trees there. On the other side, it's a 10-inch oak, a 36-inch maple, a twin maple, no size given. 10-inch oak, a 30-inch maple. And the 10-inch oak is probably going to come anyway. It's by the water.
Yeah, the retention system, okay.
So no matter which way it looks like there's going to be a 4 or 5 additional trees, no matter which way I go.
What is the, what's the relative condition of these maples that are hugging this proposed driveway?
They're in fair shape,
Okay. The
but they are maples.
30-inch maple that's in close proximity to the garage?
Again, that's a fair tree. It's a viable tree.
You don't know what species of maple?
No, I'm sorry, I do. I would assume it's a sugar maple.
If it was a Norway, we,
Any neighbors' trees, Howard indicated?
Yeah.
Are we close to that?
there's
or-
no indication of.
Now, the lot next door is a commercial piece of property, and it's all pavement.
Okay,
On both sides, the rear lot is commercial.
The lot to the south is a commercial piece of property, and it's all driveway and pavement.
Right.
And to the west? Yeah.
And to the west, there's a fence, and then there's a yard, and then the house.
And
So
are
there's
there any
really,
trees within
the
the-
trees are right on the property line.
But on the neighbor's side, are there any trees?
No,
No.
no, it's just lawn.
It seems to me the law, if all the trees are in reasonable shape, the more significant trees are on the side where the driveway is currently proposed, and they're the trees that would help screen the house and it would be effective to the neighbors. So I would think moving the driveway to the other side would be a way of doing it, and they're smaller trees and less significant ones, and the largest one that would be lost is probably going to be lost with the construction of the garage anyway, where it's currently listed.
Okay, and then I can move the garage to the other side of the property.
Yeah. I think that would,
Move the garage to the other side of the
yeah, he's going to
property?
bring it over here.
Oh, okay,
Bring the
right.
driveway down
Yeah,
here.
beautiful.
So that goes away, but these all
keeps it away
stay.
from the
And
ash.
this parking area goes over a little bit.
Here we get reversed.
Yeah, that 10-inch ash would then be more protected.
Yeah,
Where this tree go?
right.
Okay, I would recommend that you amend your plans. And since you're going to be taking down more than the 5 trees altogether, that you come back with a,
There'll be 4 more trees coming down.
right,
So, my schedule of trees coming down, and then I would have to have a replacement schedule
Exactly.
of what's going to go back in.
compensatory trees going back in.
Right.
And then submit that to the township and we review it again at.
Now, I do plan, as you can see, putting 6 trees across the front of the property,
Okay,
okay? Would the street trees suffice for the shade trees? Or would I have to have a combination of both street trees and shade trees as replacement?
it needs to comply with the compensatory rating of the ordinance. And sitting here again, looking at this for the first time tonight, I would request that you go back and revise your plan, show us what trees are coming down, the calipers, and then how many trees you're putting back in, and come back to us next month.
Okay.
Okay?
And that,
Okay.
yeah, and that should also show tree protection.
Oh, yeah, sure,
Yeah,
yeah.
okay.
And silt fencing and all the other stuff that goes with it, yes. This plan does show silt fencing and tree protection
Okay.
as it was designed. I'll change it.
Right.
Great.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, John. Okay, fourth item on the agenda is Villanova University, returning from the November meeting.
No Nova.
Okay. Good evening, gentlemen. Thank you. My name is Stuart Appel. I'm the project landscape architect. With me this evening is Robert Morrow, who works for Villanova. He's the vice president of facilities and real estate. Mark Thompson, who's the project architect, and Karen McManuels, who's the project civil engineer. And we've been here before. We had an opportunity to walk the site with several members of the commission. I thought, since not everyone was there, if you're still so inclined, that we might sort of give a quick 5-minute overview of the project. Or we can just go sort of right into...
You were the one who wasn't there, Joe. If you're happy, I'm
I don't know, we're happy.
Or I can just sort of go into sort of
I think you could just go.
what's changed, or
I think
what...
you could go into the plan.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And let me just...
So for Doug's sake, it's a beautiful plan. It's to improve the campus, and there are some good reasons for what they're doing. We do have some questions that we'll be
Right.
asking, but
They're making it more pedestrian friendly.
The focus
It's
of
not
the
an
central
unusual-
24-acre core is we're basically removing automobiles and parking from the central part of the campus, other than security vehicles, maintenance, emergency, what have you. The campus will be beautified. There'll be new paving, lights, furniture, and landscaping, as well as really sort of integrating and tying the campus architecture to the campus landscape. And so there'll be some walkways that'll be removed that really have evolved over time, aren't necessary. Other spaces that are going to be created over the past 9 months or so, since really last spring. We've participated with the project team and university officials in a series of focus groups with all the stakeholders, faculty, administrative people, students, clergy, to really sort of understand what's sacred, what's not, looked at spaces that are really being underutilized and could be transformed. And so there's a new campus plan, which you sort of see up there is in your plans, and really sort of working from the east to the west, the Sullivan Sheehan courtyard, the space between Vasey and Connolly, which is now divided from walls, is going to be sort of brought together and plazas created. There's a new central oval that's going to be created by Core, Kennedy, and Doherty in that space, which really isn't utilized, and probably one of the more significant areas of discussion. This area here that I'm showing is what is known as the grotto on the campus. It's bounded by Alumni Hall and Falvey Library. Our orientation mass occurs there in August. There's a lot of shrubbery that gets beaten up. All of the trees there are going to be saved, but the understory is going to become more of a turf landscape. A number of trees are going to be located from one part of the campus to the other, to really sort of create and open up this area. What we've shown in our documents that we've given you, we've identified throughout the campus the trees that are to be removed, the trees that are to be relocated, as well as a whole series of trees that will be new plants. By ordinance, our tabulation schedule shows you that there are a total of 29 trees that will be relocated from one place to another, and we've worked that out with our phasing. There are 77 trees that will be removed. We've identified on the plans, they've all been numbered, and identified by species. Where they're in poor condition, we've identified that, or where they're just in conflict for one reason or another, we've identified that as well. And identified that, the total number of replacements, and we're far exceeding that. We're putting in several hundred new trees, more than 3 times what we actually need to by ordinance. I think, we've sort of walked the campus together, and the area, and I'll sort of go to this now, that was sort of the most significant point of discussion was this area right here, Core Kennedy. We call it the, there's an existing, we call it the wagon wheel. It's a very underutilized space. You can see here its relationship to where we're removing the pavement, the walkways. I don't know if you can see it on your drawings that you have in front of you, but do you have monitors there? Oh, so you're looking at the same thing? Oh, cool.
We're not ignoring you.
Everybody's looking down. Why are they looking up there? Okay. Well, then you can see on that plan, shown in light red, the existing network of paths that are in what is now an oval. This is a very underutilized space, and one of the things that came out of the focus group was a desire for more area in what's called the Oreo, which is this plaza area here, which right now is really the center of gravity of the campus. On a busy day, you'll see tons and tons of students there, and in this area where you see the spokes on the wheel, nobody really goes there other than to get from point A to point B. So the design really sort of creates a new space that will be tied to the Oreo and create a center of campus that's right tied to Kennedy, to Connolly, and to Doherty, where the student union is, the student store is, and where the dining halls are. What is shown on the plan here is, which shows the existing trees. The trees that are X'd are to be removed. The light trees that are shown will remain, and we also show then the trees that are to be relocated. Those are in the light green. This is a view of the Oreo looking towards Barclay Hall. Connolly is on your left. On one of the busier, more active days of the year, this is Balloon Day. There's the big festival. A lot of vendors and students of various groups and clubs are out. It's a really busy day. This is the same day looking towards Kennedy, across what we're referring to as the wagon wheel. There's a number of trees there. Some of the roots are exposed. They create trip hazards. But you can see, just go back. This is within minutes of each other. I took these pictures, and you can sort of the difference in the use. And it's a combination of, here's again, looking from that oval, from the wagon wheel towards that Oreo area. There are a number of trees, many of which are in poor condition. There are a number that are in good condition, particularly the dawn redwood. But to create this open space, to create the circulation around, to tie the buildings together, the grades change, and it's not possible to save the trees in those locations and redesign it and accomplish everything else. And so there's sort of a trade-off there. This is that same day looking towards Core Hall. These are spaces that people travel through from one day to get from one place to another. When we were out there, we had discussion about the four Himalayan pines that are in reasonably good shape, although we did talk with Bill Graham. We had him come out and take a look at him. And he was really not that impressed with the condition. I think I mentioned to you when we were on site, they've been riddled recently or over the years by yellow-belly sapsuckers, and so there's a lot of sap that's dripping down the trees, and probably not really worthwhile relocating. We have looked at the dawn redwood. That really is a specimen tree. It's in great shape, and it's just not in the right place. And we are looking seriously at relocating that. We've talked to several large tree movers about what that would entail. The phasing works out. I'm not standing here tonight making a commitment because we still want to get people out to look at it. But we have shown, if you look actually on the plans, an area that's the potential location that would be in the same area where we're really, and this is phase 2. So the first phase is sort of the stepped area between Connolly and Vasey. And so potentially, if this works out, we could root prune that year 1, let that sit, fertilize it, water it, get it ready, and then next year move it when this phase goes. So this is from that area that we're talking about, the oval looking towards Doherty. And this is how that would open up. And you can really see how, creating this lawn panel, relocating the Oreo sculpture onto the top of this plinth, regrading this so that now Doherty is handicap accessible. And that's also one of the overall goals of the master planning and the design work that we're doing right now. Many of the buildings that were never handicap accessible ramps have been put up there, as you see all over. But they're not very gracious. They're not very dignified. You have the main entrance over here, and then you have a ramp off to the side. And so now this will be redesigned so that, there's a very gracious entrance and everybody's treated equally. And so the entrance to Doherty, the plaza by the Oreo, and the oval here, the Commons, is all handicap accessible. The last piece of this is the space. We're now looking west towards, you're looking at Connolly on the right, Vasey on the left. The stairs here currently subdivide this part of the campus. There are several honey locusts here that we had looked into relocating. They are just too big. They are grown close together, and so they're really not going to be well formed if we move them. But a number of the other trees in this area and in the area between Sheen and Sullivan will all be relocated, most of them to that area by the grotto, where the existing trees are, that we're going to relocate the shrubs and create a garden. And so you can see what this space will look like, and really sort of tie the north and the south sides of the campus together, again, create sort of gracious handicap accessibility to all the buildings. The last thing that I did just want to point out, on sheet L106, we have also provided for you, and these will be embellished as we get to construction specifications, some detailed notes about demolition, how pavements are to be removed, tree protection areas, construction of new sidewalks near trees, utility installation, root pruning near sidewalks, and the tree maintenance during and post-construction. And we're also going to have an arborist on site while that work is being done, because there are several areas, particularly like in the grotto area, where there's some walks that really aren't necessary that are going to come up, but they're near existing trees, all of which are going to be saved. So we're going to be taking careful precautions as to how, not only how construction is being done, but how demolition is being done.
Okay. No, thank you for your explanation. Now, we did appreciate the opportunity to walk the site last week. And I think, for the most part, we see exactly, what you're proposing and why you're proposing it. The one area we did have the most problem with is that, that wagon wheel area. And then the suggestion was that, to reconsider, replanting some of those existing trees elsewhere. As I walked the campus that morning, I heard your explanation as to why this particular area was being redeveloped. Partly because it's under what was been termed underutilized, partly because the grading changes would assist in your accessibility issues, and both of those I can clearly appreciate. The one thing that struck me that morning is this particular area, to me, was probably, I don't know how else to express it, was probably the most garden-like area on the campus. It had the feel of intimacy, of, it was a quiet, private place that if students didn't want to be out in the mix, that it was a retreat of sorts. And it seemed as though it was relatively well thought out in the past to serve that purpose. That's the struggle that I think probably the three of us that morning were trying to deal with.
Well, I think, we've gone through this process with all of the stakeholders, and the feedback that we got resoundingly was, this is one of the least favorite areas that people have, and while it may feel that way, that it's a place that people just cut through. People don't spend time there. The seating areas are designed such that, you have a row of benches on one side and the other. They're kind of close to each other, and people are walking through. So the tendency, with rare exceptions, is to avoid those as seating areas. The combination of the walls and where the trees are located, doesn't sort of lend itself for that space to feel like it's a part of any other. And so consequently, it doesn't get used. That was one statement that we heard over and over again. The other was that there was a desire for a more open area that could be more passive, like what I'm showing here. There is Mendel Field, but Mendel Field is also, while it's a large open space, it's a very active space. I mean, there are intramural ball games that go on there. The Navy ROTC does exercises there. I mean, it's not a place where you can sort of just lie down and, and hang out, other than maybe on the edges. But this is also very much in the center. One of the spaces that we talked about when we walked around was the design of what we're calling the new grotto, which we had showed you where that beautiful specimen linden and the other dawn redwood are. Between St. Austin Hall and St. Rita's. And one of the other things we heard a great deal of from the students and faculty alike, administrators, was to have a place like what you're describing, a more quiet, more contemplative place, a more prayerful place, because the grotto is not really a grotto. It's called that, but it doesn't serve that purpose. And so between that space, there will be now a new and much smaller place that will accommodate maybe 30 people. There'll be an entrance trellis. It'll be in front. Those two specimen trees will be the backdrop to it. We're going to relocate the statue that currently exists there, and create that little more intimate private place that the wagon wheel potentially could be, but for reasons of its design and placement doesn't really work that way.
Okay.
You mentioned that Bill Graham expressed concerns about the Himalayan pines. How did he rate them then? In was it poor condition?
He didn't feel that. No, I wouldn't say he said they were poor. He didn't feel that they were trees that were of a quality that would be worth trying to relocate, just given they're close together. So, if you pull one out, you're not going to get a beautifully formed tree. If you noticed, I mean, there is sap running, down, a great deal of sap through all of them. They're pretty much riddled with holes from the birds. And so, I mean, if we weren't disturbing that area, there wouldn't be a tree we'd be looking to take down. They're not hazardous. So, no, they're not poor.
Okay, so his
But
comment
they're
was they weren't worth moving.
They're not worth moving,
right.
whereas the dawn
Wasn't that
redwood
they weren't in
is
poor
beautiful.
shape.
It's a specimen tree, and is accessible.
And when we looked at the wagon wheel, which is to become the oval, and the oval is I can see that as being an attractive design. And there were a number of trees that were listed as in poor condition and were not significant
Right.
trees. And it seems to me a lot of those would open up the area and bring quite a bit of light to it.
Right.
I imagine when you looked at the design, you thought about, could you work around the trees that were in good shape? Could you, but that's a part I haven't understood yet in the
Sure.
design. So
Well,
could you work that
we
through a little
did.
bit?
If you look on the plans, let me go back to this if I can bring this up. This shows it pretty well. There's a beautiful beach right here that we worked around. There's a lovely honey locust, a very large honey locust. And off of this picture, I'm sorry. So in,
That beach, is that the 24-inch copper beach?
yes, that's the 24-inch copper beach.
Because it has an X on
It
it
has
on
a-
our plan, so it is not to go out, it is to be remaining?
Like Kennedy Hall?
I don't know.
You don't look at, I don't know, this is not correct. I think this was an early demolition plan.
It's dated October 5.
That's a C drawing. Let me bring your attention.
Okay. Yeah, we always go to these first because old eyes see them better.
You know what? This is the drawings, the old drawings?
Only in the reduced version.
Okay. We will get these over. These are the drawings really that you should look at. I think that was done with the grading disturbance permit
Okay.
application. This has the schedule of all the trees. So this is the 24-inch copper beech. And that's the stay.
And this big honey locust? is that
This
right?
is the honey locust, 27-inch honey locust to stay, and the sweet gum
Okay.
is also going to stay. And so, you know, this was all designed, originally it was sort of coming further out, we were able to pull it in. We redesigned sort of this area to save those two trees. And it also, it works well, because this really sort of creates, the existing copper beech creates a gateway coming into here. You know, this oval will be opened up, but there's really this specimen at the end of it, and it's large, and
Right.
it'll be nice to have that out in the field.
Okay.
The other thing that I think I mentioned to you when we walked the site, that you know, originally early on, Villanova was an arboretum, and so there are a number of, you know, unusual trees. The yellowwood that's there, which is really splitting, it's falling apart now, and some there's a cherry birch and some other trees that are unusual. You don't see them everywhere. So in the new planting plan, all of those species will be put in someplace on the campus, in multiple places as new trees. So we'll get good quality. So we'll sort of keep the heritage and history and the diversity of what was there.
Okay. No, that's helpful.
Would you like to keep this? Live with me when we're done. Make sure you take copies.
Yeah, make sure that engineering can give us a copy of this, because this is the size plan we need to approve. We can't approve off of these plans. Okay?
We'll get them soon.
That's great. Thank you. Whoop.
So I don't think we kind of interrupted your discussion there. So, for instance, with the Himalayan pines and the meadow sequoia, the dawn redwood, you looked at them, you felt that there was no way to work around them, but and why could you not work around them?
Sure. Given the existing grades and their location, if it's just easy to show you on here. This is a good plan because it shows the proposed design underneath, and it shows you the existing tree locations. So the dawn redwood is here. The Himalayan pines are here, 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 and here. So the pathway, this is an 18-foot wide pathway that, and this is really the priority movement in terms of desire lines, which was something else that we were studying, where people are going. So they fall literally right in the path. Here the Himalayan pine and the dawn redwood fall in the lawn
lawn.
panel. And so, I mean, there's the aesthetic discussion argument as to how that would look in the middle of this lawn panel. But significantly, the grade change, they'd be several feet down. And so then to sort of create a wall around them such that they would survive, we'd then have this pit, in the middle of this panel. And, and that has its own hazard issues and liability issues, aside from the aesthetic of, now this is going to be an open landscape, and, the metasequoias, this dawn redwood is going to be this rocket ship sticking up. And where we're looking at it, this is where I was mentioning before, a possible transplant of that tree. If I can take you to the design the sheet. Here, there's a rain garden. There are a number of trees around, and if we can put it here, now it's sort of going to be visible, but on the edge, and it'll sort of fit in with sort of a more naturalized planting. And this shows you the existing trees to be saved when you sort of look at these planting plans. Actually, also one of these honey locusts we're also saving, and trees that are being, new trees that are being proposed, and any trees that were being relocated.
Okay.
And could you just, so this is being raised up over the current, to bring it up to the doorway of Doherty?
There'll be, the steps will be removed, and so you'll have a grade change that will slope right up to the doors of Doherty.
Now, that would be, how steep will that slope be? 1 in 12? That's
Oh,
what
no, it'll
accessible.
be, I don't have the grading plan, but less than 5%.
Yeah, this falls off as it comes down this way. So they're going to raise all that up, bring that whole thing up, which will then help them access Doherty in a much smoother fashion. So when will you have an idea as to whether or not at least the redwood can be?
Well, I think that decision needs to be made within the next month or two, because if it's going to happen, that's the time to do it before the new root starts shooting out, and you want to root prune it this season. February, March.
Okay. One of the other issues that came up while we were on site, and we've done a little research, is the planting of the Route 30 corridor. And although the two are quite separated in one way or another, in our research, we've found that since 1990, there's been suggestions that Villanova would help Radnor Township green its Route 30 corridor. That Route 30 corridor has been a priority for the Shade Tree Commission and Radnor Township, especially over the past 3 to 4 years. Many organizations have contributed significant funds to assist the township in the greening of that corridor. We would seriously like Villanova at this time to consider stepping forward and helping in that greening effort. Much of the rest of Route 30 is all the way from the Blue Route on to Stratford. Many private and business owners have stepped forward and helped us plant trees in that corridor. And the Villanova area still feels relatively naked compared to the rest of the corridor. So we would ask that you seriously consider assisting us in enhancing the corridor.
Bob Morrow from Villanova. Howard, we are planning to do some significant streetscape on Lancaster Avenue as part of our next project. We're actually meeting tomorrow, if it doesn't rain or snow too much, with two of the commissioners, I think Mr. Fisher and Mr. Spengler, to talk about the project. It's not a secret, it's in our master plan, it's been published, and so we hope to develop the surface parking lot between the church and 9th Avenue and the landscape and streetscape, as I mentioned, sidewalk, fence, green buffer, street trees on both sides. So we intend to do it as part of that project. But are you kind of insisting that we add some as part of this project? Is that your desire?
Yeah, I think that's our desire. I mean, we've been hearing, like I say, 20 years now that you're going to do something. And after 20 years, nothing has been done. And
are you envisioning both sides of Lancaster, or the north side only, or the south side only, or both?
I think we'd be happy with the north side. The south side, we can understand your troubles over there because of your parking lot.
To plant something before we have a design. Okay, we would certainly consider some street trees between Ithan and the church on the north side. Is that the area you have in mind? Okay. One of my concerns I expressed in our walkthrough was blocking the view, kind of the iconic view of the church. So I wouldn't foresee a dense row that you couldn't see through, but as one of you fellows had mentioned, planting them in stands or in groups. Sure, we'll be happy to consider that.
You might even be able to find somebody who could design that.
I know a good one.
So just to be clear on that last comment, though, so the idea of maybe not necessarily planting, a straight row of trees, but if there were copses or groups that set up views but provided, greening along there, that would.
I think that'd be great. I think that. Yeah. It doesn't have to be a standard street tree planting.
Okay.
No.
Great.
That'd probably be better for the trees.
Yeah. Again, the rest of the corridor is green. You come to that, and it's just all wide open and lawn on one side, parking lot on the other, and it just doesn't. It's not cohesive with the rest of what Radnor's trying to say out there.
Great. Okay.
Any other comments?
You say that the master plan that you have for the long term is somewhere publicly available?
It's on the Villanova website. If you go to the Villanova website and go to the president's site, on the left there's new initiatives, there's the strategic plan and the campus master plan. It's a PDF document, it's 182 pages, it's kind of voluminous, but it shows conceptual development on Lancaster Avenue, where we would replace the large surface lot with performing art, a parking structure, a performing arts center, and some residence halls with some Villanova targeted retail on the first floor.
I'll go look.
Okay.
I didn't know that. I should know about that because I was planning it.
Okay. I think we would appreciate some information regarding the redwood as soon as you get that, and then also a conceptual idea as to what you would propose for Route 30.
Okay.
And then we'll move on from there.
Very good.
Okay?
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So you know, a new set of drawings were submitted 2 weeks ago.
Okay.
You should have updated,
Yeah,
And we'll, obviously, there was at least one conflict between
Right.
the demolition plan and our plans, and we'll make sure that gets cleaned up.
right. Now, the administrative assistant for engineering has been out for a while, so that's probably why we didn't get the latest and the greatest. So. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, old business. New business, I just want to announce that Radnor Township Shade Tree Commission has asked a certified arborist to review its ordinance, and that gentleman has come back with some suggestions as to how the ordinance could be improved. And the Shade Tree Commission will be reviewing those suggestions in the coming month. There are two hazardous tree reports. There's 120 Patent Lane and 608 Brookside Avenue. And both of those hazardous trees were approved. And that is the agenda for tonight's meeting. And we will join you again in 3 weeks or so.